Hey friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Today we're looking at one of the most exciting new luxury SUVs on the market, the 2017 Audi Q7. It's all new from the ground up. It's got more horsepower, more technology and luxury inside, and as you can see, all new styling. So let's check it out. Now on styling, one thing you know if you've ever looked at Audis is the fact that even when something's all new from the ground up, it's evolutionary. It's definitely an Audi at first sight. That hasn't changed. What they have done here is they've got the latest iteration of their single frame grille design. This one has a very nice satin chrome finish, as does most of the trim on this vehicle. The emblem there, still shiny chrome. Headlights on this one. Now xenons are standard with LED signature lights. Here we have the full LED lights. They really do light up the world well at night, and they've got those nice light pipes. They give you a nice signature look during the daytime. As we come around the corner here, you see that we've got the large 20-inch wheels on this one, standard or 18s on the lower trim grades. And the thing with Audi is if you don't like this wheel style, they offer plenty of choices. As we come down the side here, you're going to notice two things about this new Q7. The first one is the lower cladding down there is body color now, no longer black plastic on the lower trim grades. It's this way across the entire trim line. The other thing is it looks a lot longer than before, but the reality is it's actually on the same size wheelbase, the same length. The big news is it's nearly 300 pounds lighter than last year's model because this body structure is now made mostly of aluminum. The outer structure, the skin, little bits and pieces of the inner structure are still made of high-strength steels, but there's a lot of different types of aluminum in this body, castings, extrusions, as well as stamped aluminum for these body panels. It really does help the weight. Out here at the back of the Q7, you've got a few trademark things, that being the clamshell door. As you see, it sort of has that line that wraps around there. You've got LED taillights here, a completely new design. They light up very nicely at night. Built-in spoiler up on top with that brake light up there, and down below, big dual exhaust tips that give it a nice premium and sporty look. The interior of the Audi Q7 is everything you'd expect it to be an Audi, at least it is for me, because I've always had the opinion, long-standing one, that Audi does build some of the best interiors in the business, and this one doesn't let me down at all. And that's design, material quality, fit and finish, how everything fits together, as well as just the overall feel of it. When you sit here and you hold on to the controls, how good and solid it feels. The first Audi I sat in the late 80s all the way up through this one, they've all had a consistent, solid German engineered feel, and that's really what I'm talking about here. Now this has something that's very cool at night. This has the LED lighting package, and at nighttime it lights up red. It really highlights all the edges in here, and it gives a glow underneath some of the shadow edges. So it's a pretty cool thing. It's a nice feature. Now this has a lot of technology in it, and it really goes without saying. You'd expect that in a vehicle like this. The first big thing is the Audi virtual cockpit. Here on the instrument cluster, you can actually display a number of things, including the Google Earth navigation map. You press a button here and it completely spreads across the instrument cluster. Big, huge display there. Very nice, a little bit distracting. When I go down the road, I don't really want to look at it because I could just watch it because the graphics are so good. It's backed up by NVIDIA, and it really is just a pretty slick thing. Now, naturally, you can have just a regular instrument cluster here, which I've had to learn to do because I just couldn't keep looking at that map while I was driving. And the map, alternatively, with the Google Earth images, can be displayed up there on the main screen. These seats, very comfortable. They're power adjustable, of course. Memory settings here for the driver, heated and ventilated up front. The seating position here, very SUV-like. You do feel like you're sitting on this vehicle rather than in it. So you can see the hood, and you feel like you definitely have a commanding view here, which is a good thing in an SUV, especially one that you're spending this much money for. The seat has a good range of adjustment. Small people in our office as well as me. I'm about 5'9", no problem finding what I want. Power tilt and telescoping steering wheel. It's got all the controls right here. Down here on the console, the shifter here, it's the electronic type. It's a toggle shift that you just sort of rock back and forth. You've got paddle shifters on the steering wheel if you're going to shift manually, and you can also do that here. Cup holders there. There's a space for your phone right up here in the center console area. Not a very large space. Right here, there's sort of a bin here that really works best for it, because that up there really looks like it's more like an ashtray for other markets. We don't really have that here so much. The rear seat of the Audi Q7, just as comfortable as up front. You've got a range of adjustments up here. You can slide the seat forward and aft, which helps for those rear seat passengers in the third row. You can also adjust the recline on the seats quite easily, at least here on those outboard seats. Got a nice height to it. As you can see, my knees aren't perched up. I've got a lot of leg room up here. These front seats are about halfway forward, halfway back, and as you can see, lots of leg room, plenty of room for the knees. Headroom also very good, even though this has a panoramic sunroof in it. Plenty of space above my head. Lots of amenities back here. I've got air vents. There's also controls back here for the climate control, so you can set your own heating and air conditioning back here. This one also has the climate package, which means I've got heated seats here, at least on these outboard seats. The third row seat actually offers reasonable space. An adult can sit back there if the second row is pushed up just a little bit. Mostly for kids though, but you can put adults back there. Now when it comes to folding all of these down, the third row, it does fold down in a 50-50 split. So you can have one up, one down, or both. And the second row here, actually somewhat innovative. It's got a 35-30-35 split. You can actually fold these down in 3 different sections, leave 2 up, leave 1 up, and it really has a little bit more flexibility than the standard 60-40 split you find out there. And when you get that load floor down, it's nearly completely flat. When you lift that floor up back there, you've got the Bose woofer, you've got the Bose amplifier, but there's no spare. All you see back there is an emergency inflator and a can of Fix-A-Flax, so to speak. Not my favorite thing for an SUV, because if you're going to be driving this thing out in the wild and using it like an SUV, you're more likely to cut a tire open or do something that emergency inflator and the can of Fix-A-Flat really isn't going to help you with. Summing it up for the interior, the only one thing I'd say that could use improvement is storage space, and that's because here in the center console, not very large. A phone, maybe a pair of sunglasses, about the most you're going to fit in there. There is map storage down here in the doors, large enough for a water bottle or two, but that's about it. Overall though, I'm very pleased with this interior. You've got top-notch materials, very comfortable front and rear. It gets 5 out of 5 stars. Audi's MMI infotainment system, the driver interface, been around for a while now. It's got a good reputation for offering a lot of features, and that it does. It's got Apple CarPlay, it has Android Auto, it's got this wonderful 3D maps with Google Earth on the navigation system that, as I said earlier, can be displayed here on the instrument cluster as well. It's controlled down here on the center console by a big touchpad that lets you finger swipe and do a lot of different things with the menus, but it also lets you spell things out for the nav system using your finger and actually writing the letters. There's a puck here, a couple of buttons that allow you to navigate here. The one thing I'd say is that there's a pretty big learning curve, to be quite honest with you. Using it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of, well, concentration while you're on the road. Usually I like a touchscreen that just has a really nice menu that you can punch around on and get where you need to get. Here, you've got to go through a series of button pushes and knob twists and a number of things just to do simple things like find your presets. So I really do think they could improve the usability and the learning curve of this, and that goes to the controls. Now the audio quality, exceptional with the Bose 3D audio system. And the funny thing is, there's still another audio system up above this that's optional. This is great. I really do like this. As I said, the one area that it could use improvement on is becoming a little bit easier to use. Thus, it gets 4 out of 5 stars. What's under the hood here might surprise you, because on the deck lid it says 3.0T. On the engine it says TFSI. In Audi nomenclature, the T usually always means turbocharged, but what we've got here is a 3-liter supercharged V6, a belt-driven supercharger. And so what it has is 333 horsepower and 325 pound-feet of torque. EPA rates it at 19 mpg city, 25 mpg highway, and 21 mpg combined. So how does it go? Woo! Nice lunge, nice push into the seat there. Woo! Very nice. Now, do you notice how quiet that is? It's got a nice refined growl, but it's very distant. The other thing is, you don't really hear a supercharger. Most supercharged engines, you get a whine to them, and this doesn't have that at all. Also, because it isn't turbocharged, there's no turbo lag. Power's immediate. And it works pretty good. The transmission delivers those shifts. Now I have it in sport mode here, so it's holding the gear a little bit longer, and when I get into curves, it's also going to hold that gear rather than try to upshift as I'm coming out of curves. So it works very well here. You can't shift it manually with the paddle shifters or down here. I'm just very impressed. It's very refined, and the fuel economy In my week with it, before I came up here and started fooling around out here on the back roads, 22 mpg, which is pretty good for a big heavy SUV like this with the amount of power that you've got. So powertrain gets 5 out of 5 stars. When it comes to ride and handling, they've employed a lot of technology here to make this pretty dynamic. And the first thing is the adaptive ride control suspension. Air suspension, it's fully adjustable. It's got a number of different settings for a soft ride, a comfortable ride, an automatic ride, a dynamic ride, which is where I've got it set right now, dynamic. That means it's tighter, a little bit more high performance for where I'm at right now, which is a windy road up here in the mountains. Another great technology it has on this one is all-wheel steering. Now, what that means basically is four-wheel steering. There's a steering rack at the back, which is electronically controlled, and it will turn the wheels opposite of the front wheels at slow speed, like right now, going around tight corners, about 3 degrees, give or take. And at higher speeds on the freeway, it'll turn those wheels parallel, which gives you a little bit more stability when you're changing lanes. But right now, we're not doing that. We are up here on a nice windy mountain road, and a pretty rough one at that. And I like to test vehicles here because it not only shows me how well it handles, but how well it handles rough pavement. This is an SUV. This is the type of vehicle you're going to be taking to faraway places. Not only do you want to have fun when you're driving there, but you don't want it to feel like a pile. And so what I'm finding out here is on this suspension setting, which is the stiffest, this is giving me a nice refined drive up here. I'm not getting any shuddering or rattling in the suspension, no kickback in the steering over these rough pavement patches. But this is very fun to drive up here. Even though we're in a big heavy SUV, it really doesn't feel that heavy. It's got light steering. It's very sharp when I turn into the corners. You expect that an SUV is going to feel big and heavy, like it's going to roll into the corners, or like if you push it into a corner too quickly, it's going to really sort of give you a white knuckle moment, like, no, maybe you shouldn't have done that. But this isn't doing this. This is a vehicle that it's actually kind of inviting me to really push it along through these curves at way faster than these little signs here tell me I should be going. And the brakes, well, they're giving me exactly what I need as I come into these corners and push it down. So I'm pretty happy here on the pavement. Now, because we're in an Audi Quattro, you know, Quattro, famous all-wheel drive system, and because this one has the adaptive suspension, we're going to do our mogul test here, which puts one wheel up in the air and one of the rear wheels down where there's very little, if no traction. It gets it teeter-tottering, and it's a great test to see how well this vehicle articulates its traction. So the first thing I'm going to do is fire up the drive select here, and I'm going to go up to lift off-road. And what that's going to do is lift us 2 inches higher than normal. It's filling the air suspension right now, front to rear, and it's going to give us extra ground clearance that we're going to need up here. So as it's doing that, I'm going to creep up here. And as you can see here, this is not really a big hill, but what it does is it literally gets this thing teeter-tottering. Okay, here we go. All right, so my front wheel over there is completely off the ground. It's just hanging in midair, and we're just kind of stopped right here. The rear wheel, it's in a hole, very little traction. So what I'm going to do now is apply some throttle very lightly, and it just works. No drama. Easy as pie. Out here on the Desert Washboard Road, I've actually dialed the suspension down to all-road mode. And that's down from the 2 inches extra ground clearance that we had in off-road mode down to 1 inch of extra ground clearance, which is really fitting a road like this where we're really not off-roading. It's just a rougher desert washboard road. And I bring a vehicle like this out here to see how well bolted together it is and how well sorted the suspension is, how well it isolates the rough stuff. Since this is an SUV, and it's meant to come out to places like this. So what I'm finding is, the first thing is, it's very solid. I'm not getting any rattling or shaking, any vibration in the steering or the suspension. This does have 20-inch wheels, and it does have a pretty stiff suspension that's really dialed in for the pavement, so it is a little bit harsher out here. but the overall structure of this vehicle is very tight. No rattling in the trim, no rattling in the dash, and this panoramic roof up here, which is normally a big problem spot out here on the washboard road in these vehicles, very little noise coming from that. So overall, I'm very impressed with the chassis and the handling. It's just got a finesse and an overall polish to it that not only works exceptionally well on the road for a big SUV like this, but it holds its own out here too. So chassis, 5 of 5 stars. By now you can tell I'm pretty impressed with this vehicle, and the last measure of quality that I do, well, we got a theme going on here because this is extremely well built. The interior materials, top of class. Exterior trims, body fit and finish, the paint, how solid it feels on the road, even rough roads, how quiet it is, rattle squeaks, all those things, top of class. 5 out of 5 stars. On the subject of safety, and it's a good one for the Audi Q7, we're an IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus, and this is because in their crash test, it gets a good rating across the entire board of everything they do, including the brutal small overlap test. Also, it offers a superior level of crash avoidance technology, something that not everything in class does yet. All right, my friends, wrapping it up for the Audi Q7, I'm very impressed. I like it a lot. So much, in fact, it goes on my I'd buy it list for 2016, meaning I'd spend my own money on this, and that's for a lot of reasons. The first is, I think it's a good value, $73,000. Now you could spend a lot more on this still. You can go up well into the $80,000 range. I think this is a good value given everything that's here and the level of quality, because I mean, look, for $73,000, that's exactly the same price as the last Lincoln Navigator I tested. And I'm sorry, you can't compare those two vehicles. Why would you spend money on a Lincoln Navigator when you can get this? So there's that. So value, I put pretty high, 5 stars. When you put that in with everything we've got here, we're at 5 stars for the review. Very good. I'm Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. Well, that was a fun test drive. I had a pretty good time, obviously. Now, I tested recently the Range Rover Sport, and that vehicle is very similar to this. It's priced similarly, features are similar, it's the same size. It offers a lot of the same things that you like to look at here. So I'm going to be doing a face-off video where I take this vehicle and that vehicle and compare the two of them face to face. See how they stack up against each other. Now that vehicle also made the I'd buy it list, so I liked it a lot as well. But I think we can really talk about some of the similarities and differences between the two. Now that video, we'll be putting that together toward the end of October 2016. So if you're watching this video after then, click down below in the information section. You'll see the link to that down there. Also, if it's not then yet, click on the big red link right here on your screen and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll be notified of it. But we also test drive 1 or 2 vehicles a week, and we have a new video almost every other day. There's always something new. So stay tuned.